Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We have to do a video about Garling. I just realized we have not made a dedicated video about Figarland Garling since God Valley, and some stuff happened there. Well, some stuff didn't happen there involving Garling, but that means we gotta talk about that, alright? I almost forgot about Garling! Aw, man, how could anybody have forgotten about him? He's such an important man, ladies and gentlemen. He's one of the Gorosei now, you know. This guy's going places. Alright, we're gonna have a really epic final battle with him. In fact, let's start this video by singing the national anthem of Garling. Yes, a man as important as him deserves his own national anthem. I will totally not just be making this up as I go along. Garling, Garling, he's the man with the plan, who owns a van where he gets a tan, and he has a fan to do the can. He's Garling Figarland. And then I'm thinking like fireworks and maybe like a really badass drum solo after that. And I think we'll lead it out with a xylophone. You don't really get to hear the xylophone that often, but like that would be really cool to like, and then just like fades out. It's a work in progress, but I think I like where it's going. Okay, so let's go through let's go through Garling's fights, okay? Because he has had fights, he's had battles, he's done things. All right, so Garling, as far back as we know, during God Valley, he stabbed the mother of his children. I don't know if you consider that a fight, but Garling probably does. I mean, you got to include, like I'm sure people have asked him before, like, Garling, you know, what are your great accomplishments in battle? And it's like, well, I stabbed the lady that had my children. Okay, I mean, like, that's probably on the list, though we'll include that. What else? He killed the king of God Valley, cut him down right there. You know, the king who wasn't particularly strong or had any notable abilities whatsoever, didn't even get a name, just the unnamed king of God Valley. But you better believe Garling sliced that guy down right away. So we have the king of God Valley, right? He earned a 10,000 point deficit in the God Valley hunting competition because of that. But he quickly made that up. He earned 100,000 points during the hunting contest, which I may remind you involved him going around and killing people that were chained up and extremely encumbered and were just running for their lives to try to not die. So he pretty much just probably like stabbed a lot of people in the back there as they were running away from him. So he did that. What else? I think that's about it. That's about it. He fought against rocks. We don't really know much about that other than the fact he got completely owned. It was an off-screen fight involving rocks. The implication with that, like, setup, like, the context, is that Garling might have been, like, going after Eris and Teach because Xebec was going after trying to save his wife and child, right? Okay, and so he was looking for them on the island, and then in the very next chapter, we see Roxty Xebec reunited with Eris and Teach, and they were trying to get out of there, and then the rest of his family was possessed by Emu, and like the Domi Reversi and everything was happening, and then you just see Garling racing after them with a couple of other Gods Knights. Garling's head is like, you know, like a good like 60% of it is gone, like this massive slash wound, and it's taking a longer time to regenerate. And Garling even mentioned that, like, oh man, Roxty Xebec, he's stronger than I expected. He's riding on his like supersonic duck-esque animal, like his riding animal. It's not quite like Karu, but maybe like a related species, some kind of like fast-moving bird, right? And so yeah, a good chunk of his head is missing, like he's a wheel of cheese that Roxty Xebec just carved out, and you know, it's taking a while for him to regenerate, so it was completely off screen. But the idea was maybe Garling was like, you know, about to kill Eris, and then at that moment Rox showed up and just like, get away from my wife, back away from my wife and child, you villain. And he like sliced a big chunk out of Garling's head, and he's like, you know, and then grabs Eris and Teach and then ran off right after that. And so Garling, you know, went in hot pursuit. So we didn't really get much else there until the very end of the arc, well, the little flashback arc, where, and I will remind you, ladies and gentlemen, all of this stuff up until now might not sound that impressive, but Garling, Saint Figarland Garling, yeah, killed Roxy Zebek. I mean, you can't deny that. It was right there. I mean, yeah, sure, Garp and Roger were there too, and they might have done like 99.999% of the work. And Rox was currently immobile and half conscious on the ground after the possession of Emu kind of left him, and he was all worn out and everything, and he could barely keep his eyes open. But that doesn't change anything about the fact that Garling was the man that rose to the occasion. He stood up to the situation, and he walked in and he pulled out his sword and he stood over the immobile body of Roxy Zebek and he brought that blade down. Wouldn't it be funny if that exact moment Garling slipped on a banana peel or some shit? He's like, wait a minute, we could finally, this is it. Okay, I'm gonna get back at Rox for what he did. I'm gonna cut him down right here. Ah, damn it! He slips on a banana peel, he gets back up, he's like, wait a minute, then he gets some dust in his eye and the sword misses. It like keeps missing Rox by like a hair's breadth, and Rox is like barely awake, but he's like, hey, you need some help there, buddy? Shut up! Do I need to be completely unconscious for you to kill me? Or it's like, no, just, I'm gonna do it, just stop it. He's like trying to like rain blows on Rox. But no, he kills Rox, stabs him with his sword. Yeah, I guess that combined with the fact that he technically won the native hunting competition. He was stated to be the champion of it that particular year, even though the competition, like, God Valley is gone, you know what I mean? Like, it's sunk into a hole in the ocean, right? But I guess because of those accolades, he became the commander of the Gods Knights. I wonder where that's, like, all of the prestige came from. Like, whoever wins one of the native hunting competitions gets to be the commander or possibly the supreme commander of the Gods Knights, you know? Because they mentioned like a house ranking, you know, sort of deal where it's like all of the different Gods Knights, all of the different higher ups of these families, you know, they already have more money than they know what to do with, right? So winning, like, every chest had 1 billion berries. That is a lot of money, but I don't think it's really even about money for them at that point, because like they're so wealthy, like who gives a shit really? It's more about like, oh, which house is better? You know what I mean? Is it the Satchels family? Oh, we're down in the rankings. We got to beat the Manmeyers this year, right? And maybe, I don't know, maybe Emu or the Gorosei do give some extra benefits and things like that. Like, oh, you're closer in line to becoming a Gorosei. Because I imagine at that point when you're a God's Knight, the only thing that you could really look forward to is becoming a Gorosei, getting the Abyss Covenant, and I guess receiving the personal favor of Emu, right? So I guess everybody's just, all of the God's Knights are just fighting for Daddy's approval at that point. Daddy Emu's approval, or Mommy Emu's approval. We don't really exactly know Emu's gender yet, okay? But yeah. So maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's why the status that Garling has had. You know, he was the Supreme Commander for a while, and now was promoted to Gorosei after Saturn was removed. So that's where we got that. Okay. Here's something funny. Do you think that Garling, because like when Shamrock was growing up, you know, they didn't know about Shanks yet. Well, actually, they did know about Shanks because Summers kept going to the Roger Pirates trying to bring back Shanks all the time. This went on for a few years, and he failed every single time, which that's also great. You know, like, we're supposed to like really be intimidated by the Gods Knights, like, wow, this is a really intimidating group of characters in the story. But Oda will also give us some like fun moments with them, you know, like Garling being off-screened by Rox, and then Summers, you know, showing up in his pajamas and his boxer briefs and apparently being foiled by the Roger Pirates like a Saturday morning cartoon villain for like 27 times in a row. That would have been great if like Summer shows up, is like, all right, this time we're gonna get back Shanks. Bring out the giant vacuum cleaner we're going to use. And then Roger foils him again. Kamu sorry! Every week he comes back like, all right, this time we brought a giant magnet. And then Roger's, Kamu, sorry! Every single week. Same exact move, same exact way, just gets blasted off like Team Rocket. Okay, anyway, they did know about Shanks. They did know Shanks existed, right? However, Shamrock was the one growing up at Marie-Joie. I bet that Garling was constantly filling Shamrock's head with the glories of God Valley. Like, he was just telling the story. It was complete bullshit. It just like, yeah, Shamrock, let me tell you the story about the time your dad fought in God Valley. It was a hard-fought battle. It was for sure. I took down Whitebeard, Roxty, Zebek, Garp, and Roger that day. Fought them all at once. Just me and my trusty sword and my duck at my side, but I was able to cut them all down. Oh, the battle with Rox. They might say he was the strongest pirate ever, but I lopped his head off before he could even get within 10 meters of me. That's how badass your old man is. You know Garling does that shit. You know Garling back in the day was just making up a bunch of nonsense. You know, it was like, oh yeah, Whitebeard, yeah. He tried to use that earthquake bullshit, but I just clapped my hands, and the reverberations from that alone were completely able to destroy him. They knocked him out in one attack, you know? Like, you know he would probably do some type of that, and then we actually learn the real story behind what happened there. Okay. So, okay. I will say this in the defense of Garling, right? Roxty Zebek really was, like, one of the strongest characters in the story. Like, back then, he was stronger than Roger individually, than Garp. You know, honestly, a fight between Rox and Roger back in those days, I would bet money on Rox. Same thing with Garp. Garp and Roger working together were able to beat Rox back. And also keep in mind, yeah, he did have the Domi Reversi, so he was stronger there, and he did have his regenerative abilities and everything like that. But Domi Reversi, it's like, I don't know, like the Demon Rox that fought against Rox and, fought against Roger and Garp, he didn't want to fight. He was resisting it as much as he could. So I don't think that's Rox fighting the way that he would have normally fought against those two, right? Like, just because of the possession and everything like that. But he was like a really, really strong character. So honestly, when Garling showed up in that one panel and half of his head is missing, and it's just like, oh yeah, Rox kicked his ass, I'm sort of sitting there like, yeah, that tracks. Like, I wasn't really all that surprised. I'm like, Rox is a crazy powerful character. And I'll be straight up, like, I don't know. I think some people looked at Garling as if, like, oh yeah, he was gonna be the guy. He was gonna be, like, the strongest member of the Gods Knights and shit. And I don't know, man. Like, I always felt Garling was strong. I mean, he has to be strong to be a Gods Knight, but Rox level, Roger level, stronger than that? I don't know. I never really particularly put that much stock in Garling to begin with. Although we do see in the Egghead arc, when Vegapunk was giving his message and he's talking about finding the One Piece and everything, you do see those 12 characters who I guess are the front runners to find the One Piece, like the most likely people to find the One Piece. So you see the Yonko, you see Shanks, Blackbeard, Buggy, and Luffy there. Buggy's obviously going to find it first. We all know this, right? But we also see some other characters. We see Dragon, we see Emu, we see Sabo, we see Kobe. Kobe might find it. Aokiji, which I find was the most unique character to be put in that running, that Aokiji might be the one to find it. Kuzan. We see Akainu there, and we see Shamrock. He's in silhouette at the time, and then we also see Garling. He's also there as at the time when he was just a member of the Gods Knights. This is right before he got promoted to Gorosei, right? So I don't know. I feel like we need to like put those rankings like in order, like most likely, least likely to find the One Piece. I feel like Luffy, Buggy would be number 1 and 2, and then way at the bottom out of those 12 characters, I think Garling just got shot all the way to the very bottom. He's below Kobe. I think Kobe has a better shot of finding the One Piece, or Sabo, or any of the other characters on that list than Garling does. Garling's going straight to the bottom, right? There you go. So that's my question to you, I guess. Rank those 12 characters. So, yeah, but I would have still liked to see the fight. Maybe it wasn't a fight. Maybe it really was just like, you know, Garling was going after Eris and Teach, and he's like, here they are, the rabbits. I'll get more points. And he goes to stab him in the back. And then before Garling even had a chance to realize what the hell was going on, Rox just swoops in with his sword, and he's like, get away from my family! Raw! And then it's like, you know, it slices almost all of Garling's head off, twists his neck clean back, he falls down, and then he's like, like, oh, Eris, Teach, are you okay? Yeah, we're cool. All right, let's get out of here. And then they ran away. And then Garling gets up and like readjusts his head, and he's like missing. Like, oh man, dude, I like that brain. Man, I have to wait for that to regenerate. That's gonna take forever. All right, and so then they were off. Okay, which still doesn't speak much for Garling there. But I don't know, because the whole point, Rox was trying to get his family back. I don't think he was really focused on like, all right, Garling, here it is, the final battle between us. All of those moments up until now have built up to this one event, right? So I would have liked to see what have occurred, but like other than that, I didn't really have, honestly, high, praise for Garling. I wasn't really expecting Garling to do anything so nuts that he was going to rival the level of like, whoa, Garling was like Roger level this entire time. I didn't personally expect that, but if you expected that, oh god, it would have been even more disappointing there, right? Because here's the thing, you want a good villain, right? You want a good, charismatic, powerful villain to oppose the heroes, right? Like, that's the whole point of the hero's journey. You gotta have some insurmountable threat in order to overcome, right? Now, of course, we have Emu back here, and we have the Gorosei, but, the God's Knights was this organization that was recently introduced, and we're beginning to flesh them out, especially during God Valley. We got to see a lot of members during God Valley, some of which might still be members, some of them might have died in the intermediate time. God Valley was 38 years ago, but, it seemed like Garling was, he was the supreme commander, and he's a Gorosei now. Surely he has to be the strongest. Surely he has to be the guy, this really suave villain that was cold and heartless and just stabbed, the person he had children with, like right in front. Like, didn't even care, didn't even bat an eye, didn't even give a shit. He's just like, oh yeah, go to live with you on this island. Well, yeah, sorry about that. And then he just stabs her and takes the kids, right? And then most recently, we just saw a flashback in the last chapter where we see Garling basically praising Shanks and being like sort of a supportive father. See, this is the thing with Garling that's crazy. Garling just cold and callously stabs the mom, and then it's like, oh, Shanks, my beloved son, all of the horrible things you must have endured in the lower realm with the peasants. It's okay. All of your hardships are over now, my boy. You are now part of the Figarland family of the Marijois. So it really kind of goes to show a little bit there. It honestly kind of reminds me a little bit, if you've ever seen Hunter x Hunter, of the scene where Gon is confronting the Phantom Troop, and he's having the arm wrestling match with Nobunaga. And Gon is furious this entire time because he's basically like, you care about, Uvogin. You care about one of your own that died, but you're also just a group of just cold-blooded, callous murderers that have slaughtered so many people. How can you care so much about one of your own and not even extend a little bit of that, like, just like, oh, that's the same as when everybody else dies? And so Gon was really furious about that. That's sort of the vibe we're getting a little bit with Garling, and of the, the Celestial Dragons in general. But the idea that, like, Garling could care so much about Shamrock and Shanks, like, from all respects, he really does seem to be, like, a good dad, like, in the sense that he loves his children, right? Being a good dad in Celestial Dragon, that's kind of like, it doesn't really work. It's sort of an oxymoron at that point. But you know what I mean? Like, he seems to actually like, oh, Shamrock, Shanks, my beloved sons, I care about you. He seems to be spending quality time with them and teaching them how to fight and life lessons. Of course, they're messed up Celestial Dragon life lessons, but that seems to be what he's doing, right? And yet, zero regard, zero love or compassion or care for their mom, the person he just straight up stabbed and murdered right in front of the babies, by the way. I don't think they remember, but like happened right in front of them. It is like, oh, yeah, whatever, I remember you. Okay, sons, let's go back to Marijois now. Wait, where's Shanks at? Where'd Shanks go? Oh man, we have to find him. We'll spare no expense to find Shanks, my other son, right? And dude, there might be a scene where when Shanks actually returned to Marijois, Garling might have been like, oh my god, he might have cried. He might have actually been emotional. No emotion over killing the mom, but total emotion of like, oh, Shanks, my son, you finally returned. It's just like that shows something. That's something there of like where Oda is going with setting up the Celestial Dragons and particularly Garling, okay? So it would be great if Shanks was the one. Shanks and Shamrock team up and they kill their dad. That would be a crazy fight. Wouldn't that be insane? That would be nuts. I would assume that, Shanks or Shamrock would have to fight Garling, but, like, why not they both team up? What if they did remember? Oh, dude, wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't it be like, oh, we remember. It was our first memory. We didn't understand it at first when we were separated. Oh, dude, that would be so cool. All right, so get this. So what if Shamrock and Shanks, right, had like a very abstract, like broken memory because they were only a year old at the time. But it is possible for people to remember things, especially if they were like traumatic events from back then, right? It's just like they're really, really locked up memories and things like that, right? So what if Shamrock and Shanks' first memory was their mom getting stabbed and like blood going everywhere, right? But since they were separated, they didn't really have anybody to talk to this about. And so they maybe had this weird, like, I remember red and it got everywhere, and like a sword and steel and my mom's scream, but I don't remember everything. But when they reunited, when Shanks returned to Marijois and they actually sat down and started talking to one another about their childhood and stuff, and just be like, oh, my brother, I can't believe I have my brother back. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy. What if they both had the same memory? It's like, hey, did you have a memory of like blood and steel and a scream? And it's like, oh, I did. Yes. It's just like, what do you think that was? I'm like, and what if they pieced it together that was Garling stabbing their mom? And then they realized, like, oh my God. It's like, yeah. And then they kind of kept it to themselves. They didn't say anything to Garling or anybody else. But what if they had like kind of like an unspoken, like, we know what we got to do now, right? Sort of thing. Like, this was the mom that like risked her life to save us. And yeah, they might have some fragmented memories of this that previously they wouldn't have been able to piece together, but now that they're together again, they could do that. And so maybe final battle, we have Garling versus Shanks and Shamrock, and Garling might be like, my sons pulling your own swords against me? Why would you do this? I am your own father. And like, he's completely disconnected. Like, Garling, honestly, probably doesn't even remember her, the mom. Doesn't even remember her face, doesn't remember her name. We don't know her name, right? We just Shanks and Shamrock's mother, right? So he probably doesn't even remember her. So it would be so serendipitous. It would be so perfect and poetic for Garling to like begin to cry. He like takes off his sunglasses because he has to fight his own children or holding blades against him, and just like, my sons, why? I have always been there for you. Shanks, I sent so many I sent Summers to go save you so many times. I love you, my children. Why would you do this to your papa? And then Shanks and Shamrock just look at each other and like, for the memory of our mom. You killed our mom. Who? The hell are you guys talking about? Killed your mom? Your mom was just like a peasant from the... Oh, her! Yeah! Who gives a shit, right? And then Shamrock and Shanks are like, there it is. And then they just go and they just slice him apart. And then he regenerates. And then they go slash him again. And they would actually, Shamrock and Shanks have the best shot of like actually straight up killing a Gorosei. So, and Shamrock especially, because he knows the whole inner workings of all this. They might be able to figure out a way to like, break through the contract. Maybe another way to bypass it rather than just using a lot of hockey. Like, not to say that, Shanks and Shamrock combined wouldn't have a crazy amount of Conquerors hockey. They would. But maybe there's another method that they could showcase and they could use, right? And so Garling is a Gorosei at the moment. We still do not know his yokai form or the planet he represents, if he just is Saturn as well. He also looks like a moon because of his hair, but also from the front, he also does look like a star. I always forget to mention the star because, like, he's obviously a crescent moon, but from the front, and he has like these weird sideburns that kind of like stick out, he looks like a four-pointed star sort of thing, so maybe that could be a reference. I don't like to think that he would just have the same yokai form as Saturn. I like to think that those are, determined individually, like they get to decide, or maybe Emu decides for them, but I don't think it would be just the same spider monster, the Ushi Oni, that Saturn can go into. I would say a wolf, because if Garling is the moon, like a wolf howls at the moon, something like that. But we already had Yamato's ability, the Okuchi no Makami, and especially if Loki could turn into Fenrir, we don't know yet, but if Loki is Fenrir, we don't need another wolf in this story. We already have Jabra, right? So, I don't know, maybe a bat, but we already have Stussy as a bat. Some other nocturnal animal maybe could make sense with the moon and things of that nature, or it could just be a completely different animal altogether, some other yokai that Oda has already picked out. So, we'll see. But yeah, what do you guys think about Garling? He's definitely strong. Like, he's not, like, so weak that, like, any character can just walk up and just, like, poke him and he explodes. But I just don't think, yeah, he lived up to the hype that I think we were expecting him to exhibit, where it's like, oh, he's, like, the strongest God's Knight. I think a lot of people wanted him to have, like, a serious one-on-one fight with rocks that actually was, like, shaking the heavens, and it just didn't happen, right? Also, that whole scene with Shanks and Whitebeard, pretty sure it was Shamrock that caused the scar on Whitebeard. Used to think it might have been Garling at God Valley, but that clearly didn't happen. So I'm going to say Shamrock was the one that caused Whitebeard's scar, and he was the one he was talking about with Shanks. Like, every time I, look at you, your face, that scar hurts even more, which does make more sense, because, yes, Garling is Shanks and Shamrock's father, but Shamrock and Shanks are literally twin brothers, so it would make more sense there. But anyway, that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know on how you rank the characters most likely to least likely to find the One Piece. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, signing out.